Have you ever thought, well, I like my twin reverb, but it's not big enough and heavy enough or loud enough? If that's the case, may I present to you the Rivera 100 Duo 12, an absolute beast of an amp. This one's just in for a general checkup to see if it needs anything. We'll go through all that. We'll power it on. In just a second, we'll take it out of standby. Keep an eye on that light bulb over there. It's going to start glowing. Not real bright. It's just going to show that this thing does draw quite a bit of current. That should do it. So far, the only things that I see in here that are absolutely wrong are that some of the pots have come loose, the hardware, and some of the pots are noisy. Let's see. That'll all clean up. I will start by tightening all the pots up, taking the knobs off, tightening everything, putting the knobs back, cleaning all the pots, rotating them a lot. We'll check back on that. Let me show you a few other things of note on this model and similar Riveras from the era. If you were the casual amp owner and you opened this thing up and you saw all this stuff here that looks kind of charred, this black stuff that looks kind of charred, that's actually just the glue that they used. Over that time, the glue separates and kind of gets crumbly. It's not pretty, but it's not doing any harm. It's not conductive or anything. I have verified that. You'll find that same stuff throughout the amp, but in some places, it takes on that character that's not very reassuring. That's really not a big deal. Second, a lot of the Riveras from this era have a capacitor here, and in stock form, it's usually a Rifa cap, R-I-F-A. Those things are notorious for catching on fire, leaking, doing all kinds of bad stuff. This capacitor across the two sides of the HT secondary coming in is not really necessary. The heavy lifting is done by the diodes, and the amp sounds pretty much the same with or without this cap. You can pull it, or you can replace it with a better quality cap. I don't know whether a tech has changed this out for this 3000 volt cap, or whether this was a factory change, but either way, this is so much better than the Rifas these usually have. And these models have a solid state reverb driver and recovery that's done with a bunch of heat-sinked transistors. In this case, they seem to be just fine. I have had these fail on other Riveras. They're labor-intensive, but not expensive otherwise to replace. It's just a lot of ticky-tacky. You got to take it all out, disconnect everything, clean up the old thermal compound, put on new thermal compound, put it all back together. So, it's just a thing to be aware of with these old Riveras. I imagine this amp is probably 30-ish years old at this point, so in theory it'd be time to change out all the electrolytics. As of right now, they all seem to be okay. These are very high-quality Nishikans. You hear me talk about them in other builds. So I will talk to the owner and see if he would like me to recap it preventatively, while I have it, so that they won't fail over the next 5 to 10 years and then have to do it on an emergency basis or after something might have been damaged from anything going faulty or short. I'm not trying to get him to spend his money. He can live with it as is. I would send this home as is with a clean conscience. But if he'd like me to do it preventatively, if he really loves this amp, now would be one of the times to do it. This amp has a couple of things. I'm not sure if it was a factory change or whether a tech's done this. They've got some kind of hung up in the air heater balance resistors here, artificial center tap off pins 2 and 7 of this tube. Seems an odd way to do it, but maybe that was a factory change. And they've got some flyback prevention diodes here between the plate and ground on each side of the output section. Again, it looks a little homebrew, but it's absolutely fine. Just pointing it out. I've not seen these on the other examples of this model that have come in. And just a consideration when buying one of these. Overall, this amp uses very standard components you can get anywhere, but these push-pull switch pots that Rivera used are not on the market anymore specifically, but they happen to have them. Rivera has them in stock, and so if you need one, you can get one, but it can take a while, so it's just something to bear in mind. All right, I've powered it off. I'm going to go ahead and tighten up all the pots, clean all the pots, and then we'll see what it sounds like at that point. All right, pulling the last knob. Got some dust on everything. I'll give it a quick brush. Get the worst of it off. I got a vacuum tomorrow anyway. And then I want to give this a better clean before I tighten things up. And I found a good way to clean these metal panels is WD-40 on a paper towel. I'm not going to use any friction. I don't want to possibly use a paper towel to braid anything. Just give it a nice wipe. It'll make it all clean. And for some reason, metal really does well when cleaned with WD-40. Imagine that. And it doesn't react with any plastic. You know, it's not going to hurt those LEDs, etc. It's nice when things go home looking better than they did when they arrived. That's a lot better. I'll do the clean cloth in a minute. I've got an 11 millimeter here. I'm going to tighten all these up because this one is completely loose on the treble here on channel 1. Any others? Yeah, the base was loose. When the pots get loose from the front like this and the hardware is not tight, it puts a lot of stress on the PC joints that hold the pots to the board, and that's how you accelerate the process of getting broken solder joints. So I'm not cranking these as tight as possible because I know that the threads on the shafts of these, on the bushings rather, of these pots can only take so much. But proper tension is better than no tension, don't you think? Let's see here. That one is free spinning. That's why that pot came loose. Someone over-tightened the thread, and you can turn past full tightness. Now, sometimes I can remove a washer and get a little bit extra thread. Sometimes I can add an extra washer and skip the part where the thread's been damaged. I'm going to try both approaches on this treble pot. This is the only one that seems to be really affected. So let me take a look at the metal beneath. And judge whether I should try removing a washer or adding a washer. Because I have washers that fit this size. I think I need to add a washer on this one due to where I can see the gap in the thread. So let me find one of my spare washers for this size pot. All right. As the knob goes so deep, and this is got some serious damage to the thread there, I'm actually going to stack 3 washers here just to hit the fresh bit of metal with the nut, and the knob should hide the very slight difference between this and the other ones. It should just be enough to give us a secure connection without replacing the pot. There we go. Let's make sure that it's going to match up to its neighbors. Yeah, it looks the same as the others. Just one more for comparison. Yeah, it doesn't stand out. All right. Well, I'm going to get my dry cloth and wipe off the excess WD-40 now, then I'll put all the knobs back. Now, because these are just push-ons, I'll go feel behind to find all the push-pulls. Make sure that they're not going to just come right off when I push or pull. The only one that's acting up is this one on this volume. And if I bet if I change out for its neighbor, it'll be fine. Yeah. See, these have a little brass D thing in there with some tension on it, and once it gets a little detensioned, it's a little bit tricky. Let's see if I can tighten it up a little bit with a screwdriver. Just pushing up on the flat to make it a little concave. That's much better. All right, there are 2 ways to clean a pot. If you have access to the underneath side there's a gap by the 3 lugs you can spray up. And you can bend a thing like this to kind of access it, but they also have these little tabs here. These are places where you're supposed to be able to put in cleaning solutions. So this is F5 Fader Lube by Deoxit. It cleans and lubricates, but does not strip out any lubricant. So I'm just putting a very small amount into that little bitty hole on each one. I do about 3 at a time, and I just turn them back and forth, work it through there. Full range of each pot, back and forth, and then I'll just work my way down the line. All right, just turning the last 3 back and forth. And very, very little of it dribbled down from the pots onto the electronics beneath, but some of it did. So what I like to do at this point is I turn all the knobs to about noon, so the wiper's not going to be trapping any of the solution at the very end of a track. And as that stuff kind of evaporates out, part of the cleaning solvent, I'm going to go with a little bit of paper towel and get the worst of any excess up off the board in that area before I power the amp back on. Might make some clean spots in the process. I'm using a screwdriver just to get the paper towel down where I want it. But again, this is all powered off and no voltage is stored. Don't go poking around amps with little metal screwdrivers unless you're very sure what you're poking around and that there's no voltage. I'm not getting much up, just here and there little bits. Now I will also test all the switching to make sure all the contacts on the switches are clean. There might be some dirty contacts in one of those, in which case sometimes I can get in a little bit of the stuff into these switches, but that depends on the way the switch was built. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. Take this opportunity to get some general grime out of this area of the chassis. I'm going to let this sit about 5 minutes, then hook it back up and we'll try it from there. All right, let's start with channel 1. Have to clean that mid spot again. Let's check channel 2. Overall, it sounded pretty good. I'm just going to double check the mids on this one again. I think just turning it a few more times might have got rid of it. Let's see. Yeah. Not quite a Fender on either channel, not quite a Marshall on either channel. Very much Rivera. Let's see where I'm at. All right, sounded pretty good overall. I already tested the presence pot earlier. It's fine as well. And the reverb was working when I tested it briefly in the combo, so unless the owner wants me to do the recap thing, he's already having me change out the speakers. I think this amp's pretty damn healthy, so I'll talk to him about that. Like I said, I'd be glad to change them. I'd be glad to leave them. These are good quality caps. They still seem to be doing just fine. But it's up to him. We'll see what he says. These are really versatile amps that people kind of sleep on. The only real problem with them is so many options. Option paralysis can be a real thing. Anyway, as always, thanks for watching.